James Malleson had a reputation, a notorious playboy surrounded by a harem of admirers, the kind of man who collected fleeting affections like trophies. And yet, somehow, my family insisted that I, a mere beta, should go on a blind date with him. My mother had shrugged it off casually. It was his mother who brought it up, she said. I couldn't exactly refuse. Just go, show your face, and be polite. Troublesome as it sounded, I went. Out of courtesy, not interest. As I arrived at the restaurant, I heard James Malleson's voice before I even saw him. He was on the phone. It's just to get my mom off my back, he was saying. You think I'm crazy enough to marry a beta? I wouldn't even look twice at one, no matter how pretty. The pause. Then more laughter. Don't touch the wine till I get there, all right? I'll wait for that beta to show up, say it's not working, and send him packing. I walked straight up to his table and tapped my knuckles firmly on the wood. I agree. We're not a good match, I said evenly. Let's not waste time on dinner. He stared at me, eyes wide, stunned into silence. It took a long moment, and the slight furrow of my brows, for him to snap back to reality. His ears turned scarlet. Nathan, do you prefer sweet food? Or spicy? Maybe I'll just order everything on the menu, you can pick what you like, would that be okay? Welcome to History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. I said nothing. No need. It's a waste of time. We've met now, that's enough to report back to our families. I'll be heading out. I turned to leave, but as I passed him, he tugged gently on the hem of my coat. I looked down, bewildered, at his hand holding my sleeve. That's not good enough, he said. My mission was to have dinner with you. He blinked at me innocently. We haven't even eaten yet. I can't go home like this. Healthy, stable family background, never been in a relationship, emotionally a blank slate. I'd be a loyal husband and committed to family life after marriage. That's the general rundown of me. Anything else you want to know? James Malleson pushed a plate of steak toward me. Only after my firm protests did he abandon the idea of ordering the entire menu. I leisurely speared a piece of beef and brought it to my mouth. But I heard you're quite generous with your affections. Always surrounded by omegas. He was, after all, known for being a notorious flirt. James blinked wide-eyed, then immediately shook his head in theatrical protest. That's slander. Must be some jealous alpha spreading lies because I'm too rich and too handsome. Sure, there are a lot of omegas around me, but they came on their own. I swear I never had any physical contact with them. No marks, no temporary bonding. At most, a handshake or a polite hello. That's it. I can swear on it. He straightened up with an air of sincerity, raising his hand as if ready to take an oath. I glanced at him with a neutral expression. No need. His brows relaxed slightly. He exhaled in relief. Either way, this is just for show. As long as we can go home and tell our families we met, it doesn't matter what we say or do. Your life has nothing to do with mine. James froze. Actually, I think we should get to know each other better. We're not compatible. But we haven't even spent time together yet. Isn't it too soon to say that? You're the one who said, I looked up at him, calm and direct. Once I showed up, you'd tell me we weren't a match and send me packing. James fell silent. His face contorted into a storm of emotions, as if he wanted nothing more than to go back in time and strangle his past self. I picked up a napkin and dabbed at the corner of my lips. Thanks for the meal. Since we've eaten, I'll be going. To me, that dinner was just another task handed down by my family. Once it was done, I didn't think about it again. I went home, washed up, lay in bed, and had just picked up a medical journal when my phone buzzed twice. It was great meeting you today. When can we see each other again? Great? It didn't feel that way. We've done our duty. No need to meet again. I hit send without hesitation and ignored the persistent buzzing that followed, turning back to my journal. The next day, I went to work at the hospital as usual. What I didn't expect was to receive a very special patient. I fought the twitch at the corner of my mouth, exhaled discreetly, and adjusted my expression. Is there anything bothering you, Mr. Malleson? James Malleson had shown up at the hospital dressed like he was attending a gala. Tailored suit, hair slicked back with wax, not a strand out of place. My heat cycle is approaching. Can you prescribe me some suppressants? Yes. Just as I was about to enter his information into the system, he added, my pheromones are pretty strong. During my heats, I feel really awful. Aside from suppressants, is there any other way to ease the symptoms? Actually, spending your heat with a compatible partner is more effective than medication. Can it be a beta? It can. But omegas are best. Their pheromones can soothe you more effectively. Ideally, you should find a matched omega as a long-term partner. He widened his eyes and rushed to defend himself. No, what I said yesterday was true. I don't have any omegas. My gaze lowered slightly and landed on the screen of his phone. A message notification had just popped up. When will Mr. Malleson come back? That omega you sponsored last time has been asking about you non-stop. James. Apologies, I said coolly. I wasn't trying to pry, I just happened to see it. James became frantic. No, it's not what it looks like. I can explain. It was a misunderstanding. I didn't sponsor him. I saw him getting harassed by some alpha at a club, and I just couldn't stand it, so I stepped in. Then I gave him some money to get home. That's all. I swear. Mr. Malleson, I interrupted, face blank. This is work. We don't discuss personal matters. Your suppressants are ready. Please scan to pay and collect your medication on the second floor. Next. His lips pressed into a thin line. Even his meticulously styled hair seemed to deflate. He mumbled an okay, stood up like a dejected old man, and shuffled away. For the next 2 weeks, James Malleson appeared in the hospital every day. Not as a patient, but as support staff. One day, he bought lunch for our whole department. The next, he treated the entire floor to bubble tea. Every evening, as I stepped out of the hospital, he was there waiting, proudly puffed up like a peacock in full display, asking if he had the honor of driving me home. And every time I turned him down with the same excuse, I had my own car. He was persistent. Each rejection left him looking like a drenched rooster, but by the next morning, he'd bounce back, full of optimism and stubborn resolve. This afternoon, I had a surgery scheduled. I was the lead. 3 hours on my feet in the operating room. When it was finally over and successful, I let out a long breath, tension draining from my shoulders. After changing, I walked out and saw James Malleson sitting on one of the hallway benches with a friend. His friend was saying, I don't get it. You've been showing up here for days. He hasn't spared you a second glance. Why are you still at it? James replied solemnly, you've never experienced true love. You wouldn't understand. True love, you two had one dinner. You were totally shallow about it. Didn't you say, I wouldn't touch him even if he looked like a celestial being? And now look at you, giving up bars and street racing, obsessing over one beta. Worse, you've asked him out a dozen times and he's turned you down every single one. Pathetic. James clicked his tongue. What do you mean, just a beta? Have some manners. He has a name, Stanley Gain. And so what if he's a beta? I like betas. I want to pursue him. None of your business. His friend rolled his eyes so hard I could hear it from across the hall. Just as I was about to pretend I didn't see them and quietly walk past, James Malleson turned his head and spotted me. Dr. Gain. My eyelid twitched. Should have taken the stairs. I put on my most professional smile. Back at the hospital again, Mr. Malleson? Are you not feeling well? Like a child presenting a trophy, James proudly pulled out a giant container from behind his back. I looked closer. It was a bucket of pens. Neatly arranged, all the same brand. And judging from the look of them, not cheap either. I asked around, apparently you doctors are always short on pens. These ones feel really good. I bought them in bulk. You'll love using them. With a bucket like this, you won't have to worry about losing pens again. And if you do, I'll bring you another bucket. What a character. I made him take the pens back. They were too expensive. I didn't want anyone accusing me of accepting bribes. James looked mildly discouraged for about 10 seconds. Then that infuriating grin returned. "No worries," he said brightly. "I'll just pick you up from work tonight." Needless to say, I rejected him. His friend standing beside him was clearly struggling to hold in laughter, and eventually lost the battle, laughing so hard he nearly bent over. I had to shut him up by reminding him that this was a hospital ward, and noise wasn't appreciated. These two had way too much time on their hands. Eventually, James dragged his friend away, both of them apologizing repeatedly. James clutched his shirt collar in one hand, the noisy bucket of pens in the other, and off they went. "You've done great work, Dr. Gain. Leave the rest to us, go home and get some rest." I nodded. Once the patient regains consciousness, their mood might be unstable. Please be mindful and try to comfort them. After handing over my duties, I drove home. It had been a long day. I was exhausted. But as I turned onto the main road, I noticed a G-Wagon trailing me, keeping just the right distance. Not close enough to be alarming, not far enough to disappear. Familiar model. Familiar plate. And I didn't even drug him. Why was he so persistent? I tore my gaze away and decided to ignore it. As I approached a road that followed the river, I noticed a crowd gathering up ahead. An accident? But as I got closer, I realized everyone was focused on a child sitting precariously on the railing, body trembling on the edge. About to jump. I swerved to the side of the road and jumped out of the car, pushing through the onlookers just in time to see the child leap. My pupils shrank. Without thinking, I shoved past the crowd, preparing to dive after him. But a dark, agile figure beat me to it. In a flash, he was over the railing and gone into the water. I stood frozen. My heart clenched as if caught in a vice, breath knocked from my chest. Panic surged through me. It was James Malleson. "You're so young with your whole life ahead of you. What could possibly be so unbearable that you'd jump into a river? Look at all the people here worrying about you. Life is full of hurdles, sure, but none of them are permanent. Look at me. I've been chasing someone for half a month, and he won't even look at me. I've sent flowers, gifts, thrown everything I have at him, and still, nothing. I'm this close to dying alone. But do you see me jumping into a river?" I shrugged off my jacket and gently draped it over the boy's shoulders, glaring at James. "Enough. His emotions are unstable. Don't make it worse." James huffed. "Why can't I say it? You almost jumped in too. If anything had happened to you, what was I supposed to do? Dive in after you and die of heartbreak?" I gave him a blank stare. Maybe I had worried too much. I set the kid's soaked shirt aside and stood up to wait for the ambulance. He looked about 14. I'd just done a quick exam on him. Fortunately, James had acted fast. Aside from swallowing some water, there was no major harm. Still, he needed a proper checkup at the hospital. James, meanwhile, was still rambling on. "You can't do that again, you little brat. Life's too precious. Wait till you're in college, you'll see how big the world really is. Hey, where's your mom? Give me her number, I need to." "My mom's gone." The boy spoke softly, head bowed. James fell silent instantly. "My dad too. No one wants me. I don't have money for food. Or school. College is just a dream. I don't want to die. But I can't live either. Thank you for saving me. But if I didn't die today, I'll just starve later. I just didn't want it to hurt so much." My expression tightened. 14. Already. Even James quieted, the mood growing heavy. Then, suddenly he straightened up, all seriousness. "Let me ask you something. Do you still want to go to school?" The boy's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." James broke into a radiant smile. "Then I wasn't wrong. There's no hurdle you can't get past. Today, you almost ended your life because of money. But tomorrow, I'm going to fund your education, from now until you graduate. You've just met the Buddha of good fortune, kid." I looked up, surprised. There was something disarmingly genuine about his smile. Honest. Almost captivating. Even the boy's eyes lit up, like a sliver of light had pierced the shadows. "Really?" he asked, voice trembling with hope. "Of course." Then James turned to me, mischief flashing in his gaze. That smile deepened. In fact, I'll give you more than just tuition. I'll cover your living expenses every month. But you'll have to make a deal with me. What kind of deal? James gestured subtly toward me. You go ask the doctor who examined you, see if he'll agree to have dinner with me tomorrow. If he says yes, you get your allowance. And if you make it to the top 10 in your class, I'll throw in a bonus. The boy hesitated. Then, emboldened by James' wink of encouragement, he clutched the jacket around himself tighter and shuffled over to me. His voice was soft, shaky, but hopeful. Mister, would you be willing to have dinner with that gentleman tomorrow? In the end, I said yes. James Malleson lit up like a kid at Christmas, immediately booking the time and place, promising to pick me up after work the next day. Faced with the boy's bright, shining eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say no. The ambulance arrived quickly. Thankfully, the boy checked out fine. And James Malleson paid for everything. One phone call, and all the expenses were handled. Then he turned to me, flicking his hair back dramatically. 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. I'll be waiting for you at the hospital. And then, like a soap opera lead, he tossed me a wink. I was speechless. Absolutely couldn't bear to watch. At exactly 6 p.m. the next day, James Malleson appeared outside the hospital. But he wasn't alone. Standing with him under a tree was a fair-skinned, delicate-looking Omega. They seemed close. The Omega, especially, looked distressed. A messy love entanglement? I figured it was best not to get involved and turned to head back. But before I could escape, James called out excitedly, "Stanley Gain!" 2 steps too late. I was already dragged in front of the Omega. "Let me introduce you," James said cheerfully. "This is my fiancé, Stanley Gain. Our families have already agreed. So don't mind how I acted earlier. Gotta keep boundaries when you're spoken for. Oh, and while you're here, clear something up with him, will you? I've always kept myself clean. Never touched you, never sponsored you, right?" A vein throbbed at my temple. "James Malleson, when exactly did I become your fiancé? And when did our families?" Way before we met, James leaned in and whispered, "Why else would they have arranged our blind date?" I had no words. The Omega looked mortified, head bowed. "Mr. Gain, hello. Those were all just rumors. Mr. Malleson and I have nothing between us. He's simply helped us out a lot. He's a good man." The classic good guy card. I glanced at James. He stood proudly beside me, practically radiating "See? I told you I was innocent" in bold neon letters across his forehead. I turned back to the Omega. "Did you need something from Mr. Malleson? If so, you two should." "What do you mean, you two?" James yanked me back. "It's not like there's anything I can't say in front of you. He's having a tough time. I once helped him out for free, but now his mother's treatment needs more funding. He's here to borrow money. What do you think, should I lend it?" I blinked. "He's asking you for money. Why ask me?" "Because obviously, when we're married, you'll manage the finances. Might as well start practicing now." "Thanks, but I'll pass." The Omega's eyes turned pleading. He bowed deeply. "Mr. Gain, I came only because I had no choice. I promise to repay both this time and the last, with interest. Please." I studied him. Sincere. Not putting on an act. Maybe James Malleson wasn't quite the playboy the rumors painted him to be. Maybe he was just a very handsome, overly generous, central heater kind of guy. "Do what you think is right," I said. "If you want to help, help." James grinned. He said yes. "Aren't you going to thank him?" The Omega practically wept in gratitude, nearly dropping to his knees in the middle of the sidewalk. I rushed to pull him up, repeating that it had nothing to do with me. But he kept thanking me, even swearing he'd repay the money before James and I got married. I opened my mouth to clarify, but James kept chiming in with nonsense like, all right, we'll be sure to send you a wedding invite." I stomped on his foot hard. Only then did he shut up, clutching his leg in dramatic agony. Once the Omega left, I looked at James, expression unreadable. "What's that look for?" he asked. Caught off guard by my devastating charm? "Not really. Just surprised you're something of a philanthropist." From funding a desperate kid to helping an omega with a sick parent. James Malleson turned out to be, surprisingly, a decent person. His smile faltered. When you say philanthropist, are you complimenting me or insulting me? I chuckled and clapped a hand on his shoulder. Figure it out yourself. After that dinner, James Malleson started acting more unhinged. Although, to be fair, he wasn't exactly normal to begin with. It was as if that meal had been our engagement dinner, and marriage was just around the corner. He began telling people he was practically married. Even when he talked to me, he'd occasionally drop in a babe or darling, which made my skin crawl. Every time, I shut it down immediately. Every time, he nodded, promised not to say it again. And yet, without fail, he forgot 5 minutes later. Once, one of my colleagues overheard him using one of those god-awful terms. No matter how I tried to explain, my colleague only grinned knowingly and said, "Oh, I get it. Just guys being guys, right?" By the next morning, the rumor that James and I were officially together had spread through the entire hospital floor. That was when I truly understood the saying, you can break your legs running after rumors to deny them and still lose. Whatever. Let them believe what they want. I was too tired to care. That evening, as I was leaving work, James was, as always, waiting dutifully outside the hospital. Before I could speak, he cut me off. "Don't reject me yet. I heard your car's in the shop. You don't have a ride, right? Either way, you'll be sitting. Why not sit in my car? A typhoon's coming. You really gonna leave me out here with no chance to play the hero?" I hesitated. A colleague walked by and shouted, "Hey, Dr. Gain. Your boyfriend's here." Before I could deny it, James called back even louder, "That's right. Can't let my baby go home alone." The colleague gave me a thumbs up. My fists clenched on instinct. Through gritted teeth I snapped, "No. I'm taking a cab." "You're always so mad. That's not healthy, you know? You're a doctor, shouldn't you know anger damages the liver?" "I swear your liver must be boiling. I'll bring you some loofah soup tomorrow to cool you down." Sitting in the passenger seat, I rubbed at my temples with a sigh. "Stop talking. Just drive." James hummed a little tune. At the stoplight, he kept one hand on the wheel and reached into the back seat with the other, pulling out a folded blanket. "The weather's changing. You're dressed too lightly. Your hand felt cold when I touched it." "Here." "Was it cold?" I checked the back of my hand. "Maybe a little." I said nothing, just unfolded the blanket, patterned with a ridiculous galloping horse, and draped it over myself. Typhoon weather really was unpredictable. Sunny skies just hours ago, and now? Pouring rain, wild winds. By the time James pulled up in front of my place, the storm had picked up so much the car door wouldn't even open. James jumped out first, wrestled the door open, pulled me out in one swift motion, then slammed it shut and wrapped me tightly in his arms. He half-dragged, half-carried me into the lobby. This cursed weather. Happens at least once or twice a year. "You good? Not too wet?" He looked me over twice, eyes full of concern. "Actually, no, you're pretty soaked. Hurry upstairs and get changed." "Oh." James Malleson grinned, radiant and boyish in a way that didn't match his rain-drenched, utterly soaked appearance. "So I should go home now?" I didn't answer. He took 2 steps away, then turned to look at me again. "You sure? I'm really going." I glanced out the window. The wind was bending the trees in half, the world outside blurred into a wall of white rain. In the end, I sighed and gave in. "Don't go. It's dangerous out there. Just crash here for the night." The moment the words left my mouth, James bolted toward me like a golden retriever, eyes shining, that ridiculous smile plastered across his face. "Okay, I'll do whatever you say." My apartment wasn't big, just 1 master bedroom and 1 guest room. Barely enough space for 2. His clothes were soaked through, so I handed him a set of unused pajamas and some disposable toiletries, urging him to shower quickly. He just kept grinning, nodding at every word like an obedient fool. While he washed up, I changed into my loungewear and made 2 bowls of noodles. He walked out just as I placed the dishes on the table. Seeing him in my clothes made me laugh. He was so tall that the sleeves and pant legs barely reached his wrists and ankles. He looked like he'd raided a kid's closet. You're laughing? These clothes are tiny on me. I look like I'm playing dress up. He glanced down and added, even the underwear's tight. It's suffering down there. I'm fine if you want to walk around naked, I replied, eyes on the dishes. Really? You wouldn't accuse me of being a pervert. I rolled my eyes. Just come eat. James devoured his noodles like he'd just emerged from a 2-year famine. He leaned back afterward, visibly satisfied. That was worth it. What was? Coming to the hospital for months, rain or shine. Just to get this bowl of noodles from you. Totally worth it. I couldn't help but laugh. In that case, go wash the dishes. No freeloading. To his credit, he leapt up with a happy, yes, sir, and dashed into the kitchen. I curled up on the living room couch with a book, flipped a few pages, and checked the time. It was getting late. I'm heading to bed. You should sleep soon too. Stretching out the stiffness in my shoulders, I stood up. But before I could leave, James popped up beside me, that one stubborn tuft of hair flaring proudly on his head. Can I sleep with you? No. He looked dejected. Then, can I get a kiss? No. The tuft drooped. He bit his lip, lashes low, putting on the most pitiful expression he could manage. How about a hug? I said nothing. He stared at me with those glistening eyes, not blinking once. For seconds. Fine. One hug. Then go to sleep. Before I could finish the sentence, his arms wrapped tightly around me. I inhaled the familiar scent of my own shampoo from his hair. His chest was warm, heartbeat thunderous and steady against mine. He didn't let go for a while. I didn't push him away. Instead, my brain focused on the inexplicable thought, he's really warm. Eventually, he released me. That same foolish, earnest grin spread across his face as he reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. Sleep well. Sweet dreams. Good night, I murmured. Dr. Gain, the patient's been really agitated post-op. He's been throwing things. What should we do? I skimmed the charts. His glands suffered severe damage before surgery. Even though we operated, they won't return to normal. That means his pheromones will be unstable. Unstable pheromones can affect the cerebral cortex, which in turn affects emotional regulation. Mood swings, aggression, it's inevitable. Just do your best to keep him calm. And keep any omegas, whether family or staff, away from his room. They're too susceptible to the pheromonal chaos. After checking on the patient, who was finally asleep thanks to sedatives, I wrapped up my morning rounds. Down in the cafeteria, James Malleson was waiting with a thermal container, sitting like a model student. As soon as he saw me, he practically shoved it into my hands. Try it. I asked my housekeeper to make it just for you. I sighed. I've told you, this really isn't necessary. He came every day without fail, like clockwork. Rain or shine. It's not a hassle. Not at all. James sat across from me, resting his chin on his hand, eyes twinkling. For you to finally give me a title, I'd do anything. Bullshit. I'd asked him to stop, and yet he kept showing up. Ever since that night he stayed over, he'd been on a one-track mission for recognition. I spent the night at your place. That counts as cohabitation, doesn't it? So when are you giving me a title? It's sunny today. Perfect for becoming official. Title, please? Look at this cat. Isn't it adorable? If you say yes, I'll give you a title in return. That sort of nonsense. At first, I'd argue back, reasoning with him. Lately, I'd learned to ignore it. I was numb. Now, I could even reply deadpan, sure. The day you, an alpha, can get pregnant, I'll give you a title. He lit up instantly. Pregnant? No problem. I'll work hard. And if we have a kid, he can take your last name. I stomped on his foot. He nearly yelped, but we were in public, so he bit it back and whimpered in silence. Still, if things did keep going like this, there were some realities I had to face. I looked up at him, expression turning serious. James Malleson. I'm a beta. I know. Betas have low fertility rates. He grinned, carefree. That's fine. If 10 tries don't work, I'll try 100. I'll keep at it. I gave up. No point in arguing anymore. After lunch, James Malleson insisted on walking me back to the inpatient wing. The man was hopelessly clingy. If I hadn't firmly stopped him, he probably would have followed me straight into my office. After repeated urging, he finally turned to leave, looking over his shoulder like some jilted lover. I watched his retreating figure and couldn't help but chuckle softly. Just as I was about to step inside, someone came barreling down the hallway. It was the alpha from morning rounds, Philip Breton. I frowned. You just had surgery a few days ago. You shouldn't be running. I froze mid-sentence. He wasn't just running. His eyes were wild, and he was holding a knife, gleaming, pointed directly at my throat. Screams erupted all around us. Doctors and nurses rushed in, calling for calm. I exhaled slowly, steadying my voice. If you have a concern, we can talk. Philip yanked me around and pressed the blade tighter, shouting with barely contained fury. This damn hospital ruined me. I'm an alpha. And look what you did to me. What am I supposed to do now? Be a joke out there? Redo the surgery now? My stomach sank. These were the patients we feared the most. Irrational, unable to accept the reality of their condition. His glands were far too damaged. A full restoration was never an option. Across from us, my supervisor was trying to calm him down. Please, I understand how you feel. But your glands were nearly completely destroyed. We performed the most advanced surgery possible. You're recovering well. If you take your meds regularly, your life won't be affected. Release Dr. Gain, and we'll talk through everything. Shut the fuck up. Philip roared. You call this normal? Everyone out there will call me a cripple. What am I supposed to do with this shame? No more talking. Either you fix this or I kill him right now. The tip of the blade pressed harder, barely a hair's width from slicing into my throat. Philip was panting, shaking with fury, his rage teetering on the edge of full-blown violence. If he twitched even slightly, I was dead. I shut my eyes for a second, focusing on staying calm. Philip, I said evenly, I was your surgeon. I can perform the revision. Just put the knife down, we'll talk about it, okay? That pretty little face of yours messed me up in the first place. He spat at me. I want someone else. Another doctor interjected anxiously. Dr. Gain is the only one in the country qualified to perform that surgery. There's no one else. No one else. Philip exploded. You just don't want to help me. You're all frauds. If no one's helping me, then no one lives. A chill ran down my spine. In that instant, I prepared to block the blade, but just as I shifted, the pressure vanished. Philip was yanked backward, crashing into someone else. A fight broke out. My eyes widened. James Malleson. He'd come back? My panic surged again. James might be an alpha too, but Philip was unhinged, his pheromones already wreaking havoc. He was fighting like a man possessed. More staff rushed in to help. Philip was almost subdued, until he suddenly erupted with terrifying strength and broke free. He lunged with the knife, straight at James. Time slowed. My heart stopped. For the first time in my life, I screamed in sheer raw terror. James Malleson. James Malleson, don't fall asleep, look at me. Please don't sleep, okay? You'll be fine. You have to be fine. I ran alongside the gurney as it sped toward the oar, my nerves strung tighter than ever before. A knife still pierced his abdomen. His clothes were soaked with blood. His face pale, James gripped my wrist weakly. Stanley Gain, if I don't make it? His voice was a whisper. I bent low to hear him. What are you saying? A title? This idiot. This was what he was thinking about right now. I clutched his hand, my voice trembling beyond recognition. You stay alive, and I'll say yes to anything. Anything. The heavy doors slammed shut behind him with a thud. I stood frozen, long after the sound faded. My legs eventually gave out, and I sank onto a nearby bench, burying my face in my arms. A nurse passed by holding a tray. Dr. Gain, you're bleeding too. Should we treat it? I lifted my head, fingers brushing my neck. There was a shallow cut there, still oozing faint traces of blood. I closed my eyes, then opened them again a moment later. I'll take care of it myself. It must have been divine luck. Though the knife had pierced deep, it had missed every major organ. James would live. But he'd need rest. He lay in a hospital bed now, pale, unmoving, lips nearly colorless. 6 hours ago, he was loud, obnoxious, impossible to deal with. Now he was silent. And still, he'd nearly died for me. This man, he was willing to trade his life for mine. Idiot. I took his hand from outside the blanket and held it tightly between mine. After a long time, I heard movement above. I looked up. James Malleson's eyes fluttered open. I rushed to his side. How do you feel? You might be dizzy, that's just the anesthesia wearing off. Also, his lips moved faintly. I leaned closer. What? I'm alive. My grip tightened. Yeah. You're alive. He blinked slowly. I heard you, he said, eyes clear now. You said if I lived, you'd agree to anything. I froze. When are we getting married? How much should I prepare for the dowry? And how many kids are we having? James Malleson must have had some kind of divine gift. How else could he be lying in a hospital bed, recovering from a near-fatal injury, and still be thinking about this? I looked at him, deeply conflicted. What you should be focusing on right now is recovering. Nope, he said stubbornly. What I should be focusing on right now is locking down my husband. Unbelievable. I turned to leave, furious, but he reached out to grab me, only to wince in pain from pulling at the stitches. Immediately I rushed back, concerned. Don't move. You'll open the wound again. James looked at me, pitiful and accusing. You're going back on your word. He just lay there, staring straight into my eyes. Silent. Unmoving. We stared at each other. And in the end I lost. I sighed heavily, leaned down, and pressed a soft kiss to his forehead. I said yes. James lit up like Christmas morning, mouth already opening to say something, but I cut him off immediately. No talking. Rest. This time, he didn't push back. He obediently curled his fingers around one of mine and closed his eyes with a peaceful little smile. Alpha bodies really do recover fast. Barely 3 days later, James was walking. In less than 2 weeks, he was officially discharged. But instead of going home, he insisted on moving into mine. He said now that he had the title, of course we had to live together. My apartment's small, I argued. Not ideal for recovery. In response, he shoved me against the wall and kissed me breathless for a solid minute. This wasn't even the first time. He'd pulled that stunt more than once at the hospital, always catching me off guard. His fingertips lingered on my lips, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. I won't heal unless you're next to me. I don't care. You're already my spouse. It's completely normal for a married couple to live together. I corrected him. I agreed to be with you. I never agreed to marry you. He waved that off like it was nothing. I don't plan on breaking up with you, and I'm not going to cheat, hurt you, ignore you, or shut you out. So you won't have any excuse to leave me. Our parents are on board too. My mom loves you. When I was in the hospital, every word you said was gospel to her. Stanley said this, Stanley said that, she basically wanted to adopt you. Your mom's also extremely grateful I didn't die. Sure, she was surprised when she heard you agreed to be with me, but she got over it real quick. She's chill now. So you, Stanley Gain, are mine. That's it. I didn't bother arguing anymore. From then on, James turned his clinginess into a full-time occupation. Outside of work hours, he was practically glued to me. He had to sit next to me when eating, hold me on the couch, cuddle me to sleep. He even had the audacity to try and shower together. Naturally, I rejected that outright, which led to him sulking on the bed, clutching a pillow, looking at me with damp puppy eyes like I'd abandoned him. He really did look like some heartless lover's tragic victim. Only after he pinned me to the mattress and peppered me with 30-some kisses did he finally, graciously, let me go and turn off the lights. 2 months later, James Malleson had made a full recovery. With the Malleson family's infinite resources, his abdomen showed nothing more than a faint scar. You'd never believe it had been run through with a knife. James strutted around shirtless, proudly showing it off. A real man needs a few scars. It's a badge of honor. I rolled my eyes. It's a badge of losing, because you couldn't beat Philip Breton. He laughed and pulled me into his arms. I got this for you, and this is how you treat your husband? So heartless. Do you have a conscience? Pinned in place, I gave up and patted his arm. I'm cooking. Let me go before it burns. He loosened his grip a little, but didn't let go. Instead, he buried his fluffy head against my shoulder. I let him hold me, swaying slightly as I cooked. He suddenly bit my neck. I hissed and glared. That hurt. What are you, a dog? He didn't answer, just nuzzled against my skin, breath warm and erratic. He held me silently for a long time. What's wrong? I asked, thrown off by the sudden shift. He bit me again, gently this time, and then let go. Nothing. Just tired. I'm gonna go lie down. Alright, I'll call you when dinner's ready. With him out of the way, I finished everything quickly. Half an hour later, I laid out all the dishes and went to wake him. He was curled up in the blankets, face pale and glistening with sweat. Was he sick? I touched his forehead. James Malleson? You okay? His voice came out hoarse. I'm fine. Just go. You don't look fine. Tell me what's going on. I stopped mid-sentence. I'd been treating him like a patient so long I forgot. He was an alpha. James Malleson had entered his rut. I'll grab a suppressant. Hang on. I turned to leave, then froze. This was my house. And I was a beta. I didn't have any suppressants. The closest pharmacy. If I left now? A low, pained growl rumbled from James's throat. I stood still for half a minute, then slowly exhaled and curled my fingers into a fist. I reached out and closed the door. The moment I wrapped my arms around him, his eyes snapped open. Stanley Gain? You. Shut up. I grabbed his hand and placed it around my waist, leaning down to capture his mouth with mine. Kiss me like you mean it. James Malleson might have come off as a flirt, a slacker, a charming scoundrel. But beneath it all, he was gentle. Even in his rut, he held himself back, controlling the strength and pace so he wouldn't hurt me. And right now, that kind of tenderness was enough to bring tears to my eyes. I clung to James Malleson in frustration, unable to reach that final high. My teeth left messy marks on his shoulder. Hurry up. He let out a low laugh from the tip of his nose, then took my earlobe between his lips. Got it, baby. We went at it nearly all night. When I woke, I was still wrapped tightly in his arms. My back pressed flush against his chest, his arm draped over my waist, palm warm against my stomach. I shifted, uncomfortable, and James stirred with me. It's still early, he murmured groggily. Want to sleep a little longer? Can't. I'm already awake. I turned over and buried myself in his chest. Strangely, I felt safe. Even though I wasn't an omega, and there was no post-bonding dependency. But right now, for some reason, I just felt at peace. My back sore. Massage it. A muffled chuckle came from above, and his warm hand began kneading gently at my waist. The pressure was perfect. I closed my eyes. Then he pressed a kiss to my eyelid. Out of nowhere, he said, Stanley Gain, let's get married. What? Be serious. We just slept together. James's eyes widened. That's not enough? Listen, I got into this relationship with marriage in mind, okay? That was my first time. I raised a brow. How much is your virginity worth? I'll pay for it. He narrowed his eyes dangerously and tightened his grip, tugging me closer. Dr. Gain, that kind of thinking is dangerous. You know financial transactions for sex are illegal, right? I smirked. Really? I thought I was just helping you through your rut and asking for fair compensation. James choked on his words. Unable to retort, he started tickling me instead. I squirmed and kicked him off the bed. I'm starving. Go cook. Because of you, I wasted all the dinner I made yesterday. We'd burned off way too much with nothing in our stomachs. James groaned as he got up. Fine, boss. Whatever you say. You want me to streak outside, I'll do it. I leaned against the wall, watching James bustle around the kitchen. A strange wave of familiarity washed over me, like this wasn't new. Like we'd been living together for years already, an old married couple. And honestly, I had no idea what he even saw in me. I wasn't soft or delicate like an omega. I wasn't even that fun to be around. So what was he after? Before I could think too much about it, James came out with a steaming bowl of noodles, wincing and shaking his hand. Damn, it's hot. Should have used gloves. Maybe it was because he was such an idiot. Maybe I was just the smart one to balance him out. Maybe marrying him wouldn't be so bad. After breakfast, I lay on the couch, completely satisfied and full. James cleaned the dishes in the kitchen, then suddenly came barreling out and threw me over his shoulder. "Wait, what are you doing?" He grinned. "Babe, I remember you said you wanted us to have a baby. I probably didn't go hard enough last night. This time, I'll put my back into it." I gaped at him. "What the hell are you talking about? When did I say I wanted a kid?" "Hold on, I just ate." James Malleson. 19, little extra. I took 3 full days off work. When I returned, dragging my sore body into the hospital, my coworkers were acting strange. Maybe it was just because I'd never taken that much leave before. I didn't think much of it. Just put on my white coat and headed to the office. An alpha colleague scratched the back of his neck and awkwardly came up to me. "Dr. Gain, congrats." I frowned. "For what?" "For finally locking it down with Mr. Malleson. You know, congrats on, sealing the deal. By the way, maybe change clothes?" I glanced down at myself. Everything was clean. Not a stain in sight. "What's wrong with my clothes?" His face flushed bright red. "You probably didn't realize, but your scent is really strong today. Like, detectable from across the street kind of strong. Just thought I'd give you a heads up." These were clothes I'd washed days ago. Hung neatly in my room. That morning, I'd asked James what was up with him. He just smiled and said nothing, told me I looked good. He was always messing around. I didn't think twice. For now, I let out a cold laugh and clenched my fists. My colleague backed away 3 full steps. "Dr. Gain, are you planning to murder someone?" I smiled. "Nothing like that. Just tell James Malleson he better pray he doesn't walk through my front door tonight."
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.